Welcome into Gridiron Icon, and the football world just gets crazier by the minute. We're going to fly with a solo edition out of nowhere of the podcast because the football world has just been turned on its head moments ago, or really in the last hour or so. DeShaun Watson has been moved from the Houston Texans, waived his no trade clause, and is joining the Cleveland Browns, a team that literally just 24 hours ago or so, he had told them they were out of the running for his services, that he was narrowing his prospects down to the Atlanta Falcons and the New Orleans Saints. And wow, does life change? Take a deep breath, take a look around. Things change in a heartbeat. DeShaun Watson is now the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, and all of the storylines, all of the repercussions, all of the impact need to be unpacked with this move. We want to talk a little bit about some of the other things going on in free agency too, considering the fact that this has literally got to be one of the most dramatic free agent signing periods I've personally ever seen in my 40 years of watching the NFL. It's nuts, some of the storylines and things that have happened, including a couple of players, three players right off the top of my head: Randy Gregory, J.D. McKissick, and Zadarius Smith with the Ravens, who had signed with one team, announced it, then decided, nah, I'm going to go a different direction. I've never seen that before, not at this level. But all of this is dwarfed by what just happened in Cleveland. The Cleveland Browns have made the trade with Deshaun's blessing, of course, with the Houston Texans. The Texans get 3 first-round picks. They get a couple of other picks. And the Browns get a quarterback that everybody really, really wanted. But man, is there a lot of drama surrounding this situation. Let's talk first about the numbers involved, because this is all-time absurd. DeShaun Watson just got a contract and a raise on average of $46 million. Not bad for a guy who hasn't played football in a year. He got a raise of about $46 million, went from 184 to $230 million. But hold on to your seats. Every single cent is guaranteed. $230 million guaranteed for a quarterback that not only hasn't played in a year, he's very talented. When he was playing, he was a top 5 quarterback in the league during that time, top 10 at least. That's not the issue, but he hasn't played in a year. Okay, want to continue to point that out. And oh, by the way, did we mention, despite the fact that he has been cleared of criminal charges by a grand jury, that does not even begin to address the civil suits from 22 women who continue to accuse him of sexual misconduct and assault. But the Cleveland Browns, they scoffed. They said, who cares? Let's give him $230 million guaranteed. Just think about that for a minute, folks. If he gets injured, if something happens with these civil suits, if he's suspended under morality clauses with the league itself, the NFL, the Browns said, not worried about it. He's just starting into his late 20s. He's our quarterback of the future. Let's give him $230 million guaranteed to come play quarterback in Cleveland. Unbelievable. To give you some perspective on this, that's $80 million more guaranteed than the last 2 most valuable players. Did I mention they're the same guy? His name's Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, who just signed his own extension, and then it goes on to lose his favorite teammate, Devontae Adams, to the Raiders. I mean, you talk about 2 doses of salt to the wound. Sign an extension, lose your top playmaker. Oh, then see a guy who hasn't played in a year and never won anything, from MVP to a playoff game, get $230 million guaranteed. The football world has been turned on its head this afternoon, and DeShaun Watson, near as we can tell, barring some other bizarre circumstance, and I'm here for it, is going to be the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. Unbelievable turn of events. If you are an Atlanta Falcons fan or you are a New Orleans Saints fan and you were holding your breath, waiting for the announcement the last 48 hours that DeShaun Watson was going to be the quarterback of the future for your team, you have got to be disappointed. And I say that with a caveat, maybe not too disappointed. Folks, there is going to be fallout and there are going to be a ton of questions in reference to what DeShaun Watson has been accused of. Female fans that are part of the Cleveland Brown fan base, female fans that would have been at the Falcons, the Panthers, who he also said, see ya, and the New Orleans Saints, we're going to have some serious questions to be answered, particularly when you consider that the NFL has clearly blackballed Colin Kaepernick for taking a political stand, whether you agree with it or not. I'm not even going to get into it because I don't care. They blackballed him for basically taking a knee and calling them out on some policies that needed to be changed. DeShaun Watson has hovering over his head 22 accusations. 22 different women have accused him, rather, of sexual assault. And it's not over. It may be over from a criminal and a proof standpoint, but it's not from a civil standpoint. So of the $230 million guaranteed, and I'm sure that was the key decision in him deflecting the Falcons and the Saints, he's probably very likely going to be settling a lot of civil cases out of court that will take a nice chunk out of that $230 million. Not a subject we like to get into on Gridiron Icon because we're all about love of the game. We're all about the players and the coaches and their stories, what they've overcome. But it has to be mentioned because the football world has been totally upended today with this signing of DeShaun Watson. And it's just the beginning because let's be honest, with the DeShaun Watson news, you can count on all these teams that were sitting back and holding their breath. We've mentioned a few will now start to move in another direction, specifically those teams that need a quarterback, but certainly those that were also looking to sign at other positions that were holding on to cash and salary cap dollars because they had a shot at someone like a DeShaun Watson, or they had a shot at a player that was going to be affected by a team that was seeking DeShaun Watson as their quarterback. So this is very likely just the beginning of several dominoes and lots of hot news over the next 3 to 4 days in the NFL free agency market. And there's some big names still sitting out there like Odell Beckham, Bobby Wagner, Julio Jones has been released and is looking for a place to land. Jarvis Landry, on and on this goes. And really, with the news of DeShaun Watson in Cleveland, we're going to see kind of a shift in other directions for some of these players. But I'd be really curious whether you follow us on Twitter or on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all those places. Would be really curious to get your opinion on what you think of this DeShaun Watson signing with the Cleveland Browns. It just came so far out of left field, and Joe Douglas in Cleveland wanting to ante up that kind of money to ensure that he gets a quarterback with the skill and talent level at the football quarterback position that DeShaun Watson has is truly unbelievable. It's unprecedented. And he has trumped what is a list of really good football players and quarterbacks in the NFL. And I want to give you just an example of what this means looking at the quarterback market with the DeShaun Watson signing. So just to be clear, DeShaun Watson is guaranteed $230 million, and that's if he blows out his knee or twists his ankle tomorrow and can't play. That trumps people like Aaron Rodgers, multi-winning MVP, Super Bowl champion Aaron Rodgers. That trumps him $230 million to Rodgers' $150.7 million contract that he just signed. It trumps Josh Allen, who many would consider is the next big dynamic name at quarterback. Watching what he did and how he dueled in this year's playoffs was absolute art. It was amazing. His contract is $150 million. Patrick Mahomes, maybe you've heard of him, NFL MVP and Super Bowl champion Patrick Mahomes has a contract that was, many couldn't believe at the time, of $141.5 million. Dak Prescott, someone that I personally would put in the same bucket with DeShaun Watson in terms of accomplishments, in the NFL. His is 126 million. And we've got players out there like a Matthew Stafford, who just won his first Super Bowl, who is coming up on extension talk and whatnot as well. So we're looking at a guy who just locked up the bags, guaranteed, no matter what happens, that really hasn't accomplished much except showed us that he's really talented, then has been out for a year due to legal issues and character concerns. And now today he gets paid in a way nobody else in NFL history has gotten paid. It's mind-blowing. You have to tell us what your opinion is, whether it's on Twitter, again on YouTube and the like. What do you think of this signing? What is going to be the impact? Okay. What does this do to the Atlanta Falcons and Matt Ryan? Now, Matt Ryan's a veteran. He lost a Super Bowl in the most egregious and miserable way in recent years, maybe ever. He's going to conduct himself just fine. But what's that room like now, knowing that they wanted to move on from Matt Ryan, that they were throwing their best stuff at DeShaun Watson in Atlanta to bring him in and do the Falcons? What does this do to the obvious person, Baker Mayfield, who, look, no matter how you feel about Baker Mayfield, folks, he brought the Cleveland Browns back to relevance the last few years. He got them to the playoffs after missing them forever. He has played through several injuries, one being an absolute smashed up shoulder that he gutted it out over the last season and tried his best to continue to drive that team to the playoffs. They didn't want him. There's no two other ways to say this. There was rumors floating around out there by Chris Mortensen and others that the Cleveland Browns wanted an adult at the position. What? Baker Mayfield may have personality issues, don't we all? But he gutted it out for that team. And how do you let that leak, that you want an adult at the position, and then go out and give a guy who's being accused by 22 women of sexual assault? Where there's smoke, there's some kind of fire, right? 22 different women lied, not likely. But you give him a guaranteed $230 million contract. Baker's asked to be traded. They said no. That's all probably changed in the last 2 hours. Baker will most definitely be traded. He's not going to sit there and be a backup. By the way, Case Keenum is on it, but it's a very interesting situation going on in Cleveland. And you got to wonder what's next for Baker Mayfield. There are some quarterback-hungry teams out there. The Carolina Panthers are looking for a quarterback, although the Sam Darnold situation is a bizarre one. The New Orleans Saints are obviously looking for a better player at the quarterback position, although the Jameis Winston situation is a bizarre one. The Indianapolis Colts have done virtually nothing in free agency, and you have to believe is looking for a quarterback. I mean, they have to be, after trading Carson Wentz to the Washington Commanders in another very strange trade by this guy's opinion. So this news today has literally been the cherry on top of one of the most dramatic free agency signing periods I have ever seen, probably the most dramatic that I've ever seen. What say you in reference to these changes? What's next for Baker Mayfield? By the way, I didn't even bring up Seattle. So the Seattle Seahawks have Geno Smith sitting on the roster. You got to believe they want to get better at that position as well. Maybe that's a spot that Baker Mayfield may look at. So again, what an unbelievable turn of events. I don't think that this story is even remotely settled. Obviously, it goes without saying, but there are more questions now to be asked than there are answers after DeShaun Watson switches gears, collects the bag, and ends up a Cleveland Brown. Really something else. Two things. One, you've got to believe money played a huge part in that. $230 million guaranteed is never before, and especially for a guy who hasn't accomplished anything as of yet. Two, you have to believe that when push comes to shove, by the way, that was the number one reason as far as we're concerned from my viewpoint. That's the number one reason, especially with civil suits hanging over his head. And you can bet they're coming. They'll be settled out of court, but they're coming. But two, you have to believe from a football standpoint, he looked at the rosters of those two teams, the Atlanta Falcons, they're struggling. They're struggling. Julio's gone. Calvin Ridley suspended for gambling. The running game never really materialized this last year. Justin Gage has bounced out of town. The Falcons are in full-on rebuild mode. They got Kyle Pitts sitting there, who's got to believe, wow, get some players in here at this point. You look at the New Orleans Saints, much the same story. You've got Alvin Kamara getting arrested for beating a guy half to death while at the Pro Bowl. You've got Michael Thomas coming off significant ankle injuries, basically missing the entire last season after being one of the top 5 receivers in the NFL. You've got a quarterback vacancy. DeShaun Watson took a look at those rosters and went, Cleveland has a solid roster, a strong roster, particularly with offensive weapons. They just signed Amari Cooper. They have Nick Chubb. Kareem Hunt has been in the fold. They've got a defense led by Myles Garrett and some nice young players in the secondary, as well as vets like John Johnson, that linebacker from Notre Dame that just was probably easily one of the best defensive players in the NFL last year. So he had to have taken a look at that and went, that team's not only close, they are giving me enough money to support several countries on this planet. It's just an unbelievable move. You can tell I'm shocked. I'm sure a lot of fans are shocked, but the drama around this hasn't even remotely reached a crescendo yet. So stay tuned. I think we're going to see more things. So let's talk a little bit about free agency, some of the moves we like and didn't like. And let's start with more drama. Has there ever been a time where you've seen players commit, announce it? And this is probably part of the social media age, in that we have such easy access to information and instantaneous reactions and emotions. But have you ever seen players literally within 60 minutes or less, some of these were a day or two, claim to be going to a city, to a team, announcing it on social media? It hits the national news. It's on NFL Network. Every podcaster's talking about it. People like Zadarius Smith with the Baltimore Ravens, and then saying, I've had a change of heart. Gregory leaving the Dallas Cowboys after announcing, I'm coming home, and then ended up saying, I think I'm going to go to the Denver Broncos based on some language in the contract. J.D. McKissick, I'm going to go somewhere else. I think I want to play for the Commanders. This is just unbelievable real-world drama in a world that's, of course, just media-centric now. We get these reactions to these emotions in real time, something that was not the case in football or the NFL just a decade ago, just 5 years ago. Well, maybe 5 years ago, not a decade ago. So we're seeing all of this in real time. Those stories are absolutely mind-blowing and have made this just one of the weirdest weeks, in my opinion, in modern day football, NFL football history. It's just been very, very strange to watch some of this. Staying on the drama theme, how are you folks feeling in Green Bay with the Packers? I can't even imagine and of course I'm going to be looking for it just like every other fan in the world. I can't even imagine what's going on with Aaron Rodgers right now. You want to believe he knew Davante Adams was going to bounce and go play with his lifelong friend Derek Carr with the Las Vegas Raiders. You want to believe that, and he still made that decision to return. But did he? Can anyone confirm this? When you look at the Green Bay roster now, they've lost Zadarius, they've lost Davante. They've got some nice pieces. They've got some nice pieces on the offensive line. They've got a nice running back room. Who's playing wide receiver there? St. Brown bolted. Lazard. I mean, you've got to be looking at Aaron Rodgers right now in Green Bay at his age, 36, just signed an extension that immediately looks like chump change compared to DeShaun Watson. And all of the complaints and all of the drama that we've heard from and about with Aaron Rodgers over the last few seasons is actually real this time. He doesn't have Davante. He doesn't have skill position players to match the Rams, the Buccaneers. This is going to get interesting with the Green Bay Packers. You want to believe that they've got something planned, something in the works. I wouldn't be surprised to see Jordan Love move soon to one of these quarterback-hungry teams. Would not surprise me whatsoever. But you want to believe Aaron Rodgers knew this when he re-signed with the Green Bay Packers. Because if he didn't, he has to be one of the most blindsided football players with his resume in NFL history. He has to be. For Devontae to bolt right after, just days after Aaron announcing, I'm coming back, folks, and all the drama in the last 2 years that now is actually real. Rodgers has a point. Who is going to play football in that offense in the NFC? Now, the NFC landscape has changed. Let's be honest. It's changed. Even in this guy's opinion, Tom Brady even took a look from the couch and went, that NFC West looks like it's gotten watered down with Russell Wilson leaving for Denver. Kyler Murray's disgruntled and mad. The 49ers can't figure out if Jimmy G is staying or is he going? Is Trey Lance the guy of the future? And Tom Brady went, yeah, I think let's get back in this hunt. I mean, we watched him do it for his whole career in the AFC East, folks, as a Patriot. Come on. So he's looking at this now going, well, and then he looks at the situation with Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, and you got to believe he's just licking his chops. Tom Brady in the Bucs and Matt Stafford in the Rams, who are also incidentally reloading with the Allen Robinson signing at wide receiver. You got to believe that he's going, I think this is narrowed down to 2 or 3 teams, and I don't even know if the Packers are one of them. Sure, you have one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play this game. But at this point, today, at the time of this recording, March 18th, no one has a clue who Aaron Rodgers is going to be throwing to in the Packer offense. The running game is solid, not spectacular, solid. And so what happens next in Green Bay? Again, drama, man. Drama, which is, of course, what makes the NFL the greatest sport in the world, the greatest league in the world. It's entertaining. There's parity. Everybody has a shot. Looking at you, Cincinnati Bengals, who, by the way, have done great in free agency, reloading on the offensive line. Everybody has a shot. But wow, has the drama in the room gotten thick with some of these situations that have transpired. And I'm going to say it now, forever recorded in podcast history. I think it would not shock me one bit if Aaron Rodgers decides, I think I'm going to call it after this. It would not shock me unless there's something in play and something in place that, of course, we in fandom just don't know about. So it's going to be very interesting to watch that and really watch it closely. Watch it closely because this is going to get really interesting in Green Bay as well as the NFC just overall. There's a lot of teams in this at least based on this free agency period. And again, we know the draft is coming and a lot of teams are going to prepare to rebuild that way. But just looking at it in this free agency period, I got some questions. So moving on from the drama, let's talk about the questions. Here's a big one for you, sticking to the NFC. What are the Dallas Cowboys doing? What are the Seattle Seahawks doing? What are they doing? The Dallas Cowboys, who for the last 2 to 3 seasons have seemingly been predicted by at least a handful of people to be Super Bowl contenders in the NFC, have laid eggs every year in the playoffs or not making them. What have they done to get better as a team? They just let La'el Collins go. They traded Amari Cooper. It looks like Kyle Van Der Esch is going to stay at linebacker. What are they doing to make their team better? But they lost Cedric Wilson. Michael Gallup, we saw that signing. If you're in Cowboy Nation, you've got to really be wondering, at best, if you're looking at this roster now and you're looking at what the other teams are doing, and again, just sticking to the NFC, you've got to be wondering, are we even a 500 team? We're a 500 team, if we're lucky. And that's playing the NFC East against the Eagles and the Commanders and the like, the Giants, who are actually getting a little better. look to be trying to get better. So what are the Cowboys doing? Can anybody answer that question? You got to believe at this point they're going to have to try to make a big splash. I've seen rumors, and I think that it's actually probably, we'll call it likely, that Bobby Wagner is somebody that's on their radar after being released by the Seattle Seahawks, the other team I can't figure out. That maybe they bring Wagner in to roam the middle there, free up Micah Parsons to just rush, and team him with Van Der Esch. Nice linebacking core. A little long in the tooth, but nice linebacking core. But on the offensive side of the ball, to help their multi-million-dollar quarterback in Dak Prescott and to revitalize Zeke Elliott, what are they doing? It's going to be very interesting to see what the Dallas Cowboys do in the draft and with the remainder of this free agency signing period, because it seems that with a quote-unquote America's team, they need to make a big splash at this point. They've got to sign somebody. The other guy I want to throw out there is I could definitely see the Cowboys going after is Julio Jones. I could see Bobby Wagner and Julio Jones, two former Pro Bowlers. I mean, Wagner's been a Pro Bowler his entire life. Julio's had some injury concerns, but I think that those two are going to be big on the Dallas Cowboys radar at this point. So stay tuned on that. But if you can tell me what the Dallas Cowboys are doing, I'd love to hear it. It does not look strategic. It does not look like a team that's trying to compete with the Rams and the Bucs. And I can't even say the Packers anymore because I think losing Devontae is massive. Not just Devontae, but some other key players as well. The Seattle Seahawks, I've said on our other podcast, and I'll say it here too, that I'm officially on DK Metcalf watch. Like, how long before DK goes sideways with what's going on in Seattle? We've also seen this week that Tyler Lockett, and this is interesting, has been working out with Colin Kaepernick on video, on film, pumping it all throughout the internet and on social media. And I got some questions on that subject as well. But when you look at the Seahawks, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, who's throwing them the football? And that's not even to get into the running game, which has been just depleted with injuries the last few years, over and over and over again. An offensive line that needs work. Dwayne Brown's not coming back. The Seahawks have been very, very quiet. Very quiet. They released Bobby Wagner. They traded Russell Wilson, got some draft picks out of that from the Broncos. So they're clearly thinking about rebuilding in the draft. By the way, I don't know if there's been two worse teams in the draft who have just drafted so poorly than the Seattle Seahawks. And I mentioned before the Dallas Cowboys, but just looking at the Seahawks drafts the last few years, I am not surprised that Russell Wilson wanted out of Seattle, especially when he's got Aaron Donald chasing him around at least 2 games a year and has often been 3 times a year as it was 2 seasons ago in the playoffs. There was no offensive line help. The running game was just a train wreck ever since Marshawn Lynch left. And it continues to be a train wreck. So I'll give you 2 teams, Dallas Cowboys, Seattle Seahawks. What are they doing in the NFC? Let's flip to the AFC in the what are they doing department. Can someone explain what a team loaded with talent with this roster is doing right now in Indianapolis Colts? What are the Colts doing? They moved on from Wentz, which semi-understand, semi-don't. You had to believe that when they moved on from Wentz, they had another quarterback in mind. Do they truly believe that any of these quarterbacks in the upcoming NFL draft are franchise quarterbacks? I've been on record as saying I wouldn't touch any of them, not one of these quarterbacks in the first round in this upcoming NFL draft. No way. They are not franchise quarterbacks. So if armchair quarterbacks and podcasters and people in fan world can see that none of these guys are game changers, you got to believe the Colts can. They moved on from Wentz, who they thought was painfully average and disappeared at times as a leader and as a player. But at this point, it doesn't seem like they ever had another plan. Now, if they go out tomorrow and sign Baker Mayfield, you can't believe that was their plan all along. Baker wasn't available. You could say the exact same thing about Matt Ryan. He wasn't available up to these DeShaun Watson rumors. So what were the Colts thinking? What were they doing? Who was the guy that they were looking at to take a team that should have made the playoffs this year? That loss to Jacksonville was the end of the road for Carson Wentz, for sure. Although I think he got scapegoated. The whole team was awful. They were that close to getting into the AFC playoffs and making some noise. They have that talented of a roster across the board. Defense is very solid. Their offensive line has great players, including Quentin Nelson. They've got great players, good players, very good on their way to great players at the wide receiver positions. Now they don't have a quarterback. They're at square zero in Frank Reich's offense. And you've got to wonder, what are they doing? If, again, tweet at us. Tell us what you're seeing when you look at the Indianapolis Colts and their strategy here during free agency. Whoever they end up with, you can't really believe was their original plan. That would be very hard to believe, particularly if it's anybody with any kind of a resume like a Matt Ryan or Baker Mayfield. They just weren't available. So that was definitely a plan B if that's in fact what happens. And you got to look at the Colts and feel for some of their players. They were so close. And Carson Wentz was supposed to be the guy for the next 2 to 3 to 5 years to take them there. Not going to happen now. So, as stated, this episode was going to be all about DeShaun Watson's incredible turn of events, all the dominoes that are connected to that decision, all the drama in this crazy free agency period, and really how it's going to impact the league, the team itself, and the landscape as we look forward to another season of NFL football starting really just in weeks with the NFL draft. So just quickly as we close out, some studs and duds from the time of this recording on March 18th that we think were just great signings that are going to obviously impact the other team. My A-plus signing at this point was J.C. Jackson with the Los Angeles Chargers. Just an unbelievable signing that really strengthens the Brandon Staley defense there in Los Angeles. They had some trouble with some pass defense, which is odd to say about a Staley defense. J.C. Jackson is going to be the answer there. They really upgraded their defense. They also added Sebastian Joseph Day from the Rams, who played for Staley in the middle of the defensive line, particularly and most primarily for run defense and run stops. I think that was an A-plus. One of the better signings. Let's go to some that I did not think were that great. And this is not just the heart involved here, but Von Miller in 6 years, $120 million at 33 years of age in Buffalo. Von was solid. The pundits, the Pro Football Focuses of the world, those guys will tell you Von is one of our highest rated defender, the highest rated defender in many cases throughout the year. I don't think people watching in Denver halfway or even in Los Angeles until the playoff run would agree with that. Von was solid, always a good player, a great teammate, a great locker room guy. But is that the guy you give a 6-year, $120 million contract to? Is that the difference maker in Buffalo? Puts you over the top? There was other guys available in terms of pass rushing or at the linebacker position, including Hassan Reddick, Chandler Jones, who ended up with the Raiders in what I think was actually one of the better moves as well. There was just other guys that maybe shore up the Buffalo defense or add to the pass rush that were available with a lot less price tag. And as a diehard Rams fan, I'm also shocked that Von won a Super Bowl after only playing a handful of games in Los Angeles. I mean, what a weird bio that'll read as. I played a few games, won a Super Bowl, moved on to a third team. It's free agency can be very strange. And I think Von Miller's will be that way. I don't like that signing for Buffalo. I don't like it for Von, who I think, like Dante Fowler before him, like several other players before him, benefit from playing next to the GOAT, Aaron Donald. We'll see what happens. I don't really, really love that signing as much. Another guy that comes to mind is Miles Jack, who was released by Jacksonville and landed in Pittsburgh. There was just other guys at linebacker that looked like they would be good signings, possibly with a Buffalo-style defense, Sean McDermott's defense. They went with Vaughn. Let's see what happens. Don't give it an F by any stretch. I just give it a C. Here's one I really don't understand up until this point in the studs and duds category. I'm going dud. I don't get Mitchell Trubisky to Pittsburgh. Don't understand that move. If anything, they just shored up their quarterback room with a backup. They already have Mason Rudolph. I really think that the Steelers will be looking at quarterback in this draft. If he lasts that long, and I don't think he will, Malik Willis from Liberty is probably a guy that Pittsburgh is really in love with. I think that it's been rumored that way. But what, Trubisky, Pittsburgh? They didn't break the bank by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm not in love with that signing per se for any of those guys. I also question a couple others like Zay Jones and some of these that really good for them, by the way. I'm all for these guys collecting the bag and getting money, but I'm not sure of the fit in some of these cities. I will say I'm torn on what Jacksonville's doing. They're giving up a lot in terms of salary cap money for some of the players. I do like that they shored up the offensive line. I do think that they've added some interesting pieces, albeit too big a price tag, in Christian Kirk at the wide receiver position. So, in my opinion, up until this point, and I didn't think about it till literally just doing this, I'd have to say a lot of these moves aren't that impressive to me. And I base that not just on emotion, but where these players go to the team and the situation they go to, I think counts for a lot. Now, I think Devontae Adams is going to flourish, I should say, in Las Vegas with Derek Carr. They're going to have a lot of fun. They've added Chandler Jones on defense, and I think that Josh McDaniels and that squad, are we starting to maybe finally start to see the Raiders turn a corner and be one of the better teams in the league? I just don't know in that AFC West, which is loaded now. Every game in that division is going to be a must-win game for the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Broncos, the Raiders. Man, is that going to be fun football. So those are some of the studs and duds. We had to do an emergency Gridiron Icon podcast this week, and here it is, based on the DeShaun Watson news. Got out of our interview format to just talk NFL latest news, which we will do from time to time as we grow the network. Give us your thoughts. Like, subscribe. We appreciate you liking, subscribing on YouTube. Tell us what you think. Give us your opinion. Talk me off a ledge on some of these. I'd love to hear it. And continue to follow us on Gridiron Icon, gridironicon.com, Instagram, Twitter, where you can connect with us. We'll live tweet from time to time as well. But as for myself, the host, Stacey Bauman, thanks for joining us for Gridiron Icon and Cleveland. It's going to be crazy out there in Cleveland tonight. Be safe. We'll see you next week.